There's something called spiral dynamics and integral theory, which involve maps of human development. Let's generally call it ego development. There's two tiers with levels within those tiers that most people are at. Like 99 point whatever percent of humans today. The top of the first tier, or the latest stage in the first tier, is called green. And anyone watching this video is probably green. Or if you already know integral theory and you're searching random videos with not that many views on it, then there's a chance that you're beyond green. Green is the highest level of human development while one is still firmly acting as an ego, a very self-aware ego, depending on where you're at in green. A lot of self-awareness, rich internal life, prioritizing the heart, feeling, often art, philosophy, inner work, empathy, wanting to learn and grow, wanting to help people. A lot of really great qualities. Sensitivity that previous levels just absolutely didn't have. So this is like the vast majority of what we'd call hippies, or new age, or spiritual in the modern culture. Many people get to green through psychedelics, including myself. That was my path. Yeah, I kind of say, like, if you're an orange and you're doing a lot of psychedelics, or not a lot, but if you use psychedelics for years, there's a super high chance you're gonna end up in green. If there are some factors that affect it too, though, like I believe IQ affects it. Um, Having some access to people that are at green, or yeah, yeah. So I live in a community called Nevada City. There's a lot of people who have done deep work with psychedelics here, and I noticed some things about them. It's taken me years to really come to some understandings. So the hallmark for me uh, is that there are people who seem more spiritually advanced than they turn out to be. This is what psychedelics do very, very often. So someone has peak experience, has a realization, And for simplicity's sake, let's say uh, on this model that someone through psychedelics temporarily experiences like 2 levels higher or 1 level higher, and then come back down. They were having a perspective they can't normally access, and there was an experience of themselves and reality that they it's not normally there, and so they get real recognitions and realizations about the nature of self and reality that they then quote unquote bring down. Now, when we say bring down, what's happening is the ego or the mind is creating a false version of that. The real thing is not there, but it happened, and so the brain activity involving memory formation happened. Although on psychedelics, most of the highest kind of realizations don't get stored in memory. Um, there's just so much information, but there's inevitably some memory, and so these realizations that are stored as memory that are they're false versions of the real thing do end up uh, being a healthy benefit to the ego in certain ways. In certain ways, there can be an arguably unhealthy effect, specifically if someone is not integrating between experiences. If we're doing powerful psychedelic trips with not much time in between, there can be ego inflation, which is not inherently unhealthy because it can be like also making the ego more positive and loving and all of that. And it we could say it brings the shadow material up to more mature levels, just like it brings the conscious material. So unconscious shadows grow up. Say you have a shadow that is sort of stuck at a developmental level of a 5 year old, and you do a lot of psychedelics, that much integration, you get ego inflation, and now you have a shadow that's much more advanced. It's the same shadow, but it's more sophisticated and less noticeably immature. You can when you have a pocket of psychic material that's from a very young age, it's going to have an impact on your relationships and your life in a way that life's going to reflect back to you. Because if you're 40 years old and most of your parts are somewhat reflective of that biological age, and you have some parts of you that are like stuck at 5 years old, 3 years old, 1 year old, those are going to have an impact that is noticeable, and there's an option to address that. When psychedelics can like grow up those shadows, so they're using more advanced, more sophisticated, more mature techniques, which can make them in a way less damaging and also less easy to spot, and harder, therefore harder to get to, and sort of just unnatural. I know some people who are empowered, beautiful individuals, mature, likable, effective, intelligent, and compassionate, and there's a there's an ego inflation there too, which seems like I kind of don't believe that that's ever going to really get seen by the person. Something about psychedelics, and a lot of psychedelics with little integration, um, a lot of psychedelics in a short period of time. So anyway, this second tier in this model, the first stage is yellow in spiral dynamics and teal in integral theory. And we could just call this the integral stage. They're notoriously judgmental toward not toward much, you know. In second tier, we can we're much more humble and can see our judgments. Humility is big. You know, humility, kind of real humility for the first time, like a more profound humility than the first tier. And but there's a lot of judgment against this green stage. And part of it is that they feel that green, it's because green is not humble. Green is this self-aware ego, and it's got all these insights and can access spiritual content and make meaning of it, but it's not actual spirituality. It's the ego version. And when green does psychedelics, they're experiencing um, something and then making a false version of it. And it's not so black and white, like true and false or real and unreal. Like I use these terms poetically here. Yeah. Ultimately, there's no like objective way to measure this. It's observations. So it's sort of like you know, when someone needs to be humbled, what wants to happen is that people want to degrade and humiliate that person, because they accurately see, like, whoa, this guy, this woman needs some humility. They're kind of they're out of they're outside the lines. They're kind of overstepping. They're parading their ignorance, and they're braggadocious about it. Now, green has positive intentions, more positive intentions, let's say, or rather, more inclusive intentions. Because any stage, anyone at any stage can have positive intentions, but they're more inclusive, caring about the earth, caring about people that are unlike them, people that are less fortunate to them. Um, so they're more inclusive. However, they're very adamant about this caringness. They're still just like any other ego. They're like stuck in their worldview and representing that, and using forcefulness, psychological violence to uphold their worldview. Like every first tier stage, that's how the ego works. It must uphold its worldview, and it uses forcefulness to do that. Even if it doesn't seem like force, it is. It can be subtle or overt, whichever serves its needs better, whichever gets its agenda met. So, even this integral stage, which has a different relationship with its ego, which sees its ego, still has egos, and those egos still do all the games. such as judging. So it's sort of like you'd think that the stage that I'm at, I would get along, so to speak, with the stages nearest to me, and I would feel like less resonant or aligned with the stages farthest from my stage. But that's not always the case. It's often not the case. And this green to yellow or teal jump, they end up being quite different from each other. And yellow and teal, this is the first stage where like true humility becomes possible, starts to become a reality. And so, in a way, green is playing humble. It's doing the false version of humility. Green is doing the false version of everything that integral has the genuine version of, let's say. So, whatever, much of what is true at integral stages is represented by green in a facsimile, a copy, a false ego packaged way. The ego makes it its own. So when green does psychedelics and experiences what it could be like to be at integral stages and beyond, it packages it, and then it seems to someone that's, say, like ready to transition from green to integral to yellow teal, it can be very confusing. To be surrounded by people who, and this will depend on the type of ego, like the personality type. Certain personality types will tend to put others on pedestals, and if there's a lot of people around them that have done a lot of psychedelics and say a whole lot of things about past lives, about souls, about um, other dimensions, about higher vibration, about ego, about God. And then maybe, if it's not New Age flavor, then it's Buddhist terms about nothing, emptiness, void. That can be subtly gaslighting to a person who's actually more advanced than them, if they have an ego that tends to pedestalize others, idealize others, and doubts oneself. Oh, I haven't experienced this. Oh, well, these people are talking about it. They must be better than me. They must know more than me. They must be wiser than me. They must be more spiritually advanced than me. So that's the risk of psychedelics. That's why Integral judges green. Integral degrades and humiliates green because it's kind of what it needs. That's one perspective. Because there's a natural human tendency to want to humble others who need humbling. It's like a tribal thing. Chimpanzees do it. someone's out of line, they need to be humbled. It's not about punishment. It's not about being mean. It's about like that's how our nervous system works. Like humiliation is what humbles an ego. There are spiritual schools like the fourth way Gurdjieff teachings that speak about humiliation being a very effective means of humbling the ego for spiritual advancement. So it's a natural order of things, and it's also there's an opportunity there for the people at that higher stage to see how they haven't accepted that within themselves and how they're maybe ashamed or repulsed by their own unhumility, their own hubris. Yeah, and that's that's what psychedelics can do too. Also, another point on psychedelics is psychedelics infuse nihilism with beauty. So nihilism is like meaninglessness. This is actually a really crucial point. Nihilism is a crucial phase before awakening or before going to second tier. So seeing the meaninglessness and the unsatisfactoriness of all things, of all pursuits, anything that I hope for is going to, any feeling that I hope for, any completion that I hope for is going to be, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm not going to be fulfilled. Whether it be through a partner, through hookups, sexual hookups, through getting money, through getting popularity. This is part of the projections of the ego. Like, it's guaranteed to not be what the ego imagines it will be. And this nihilism is important to feel and like get depressed within this phase. This happens in green going into yellow. This is often the shock point, like the no man's land. A lot of people enter it and then back out, or maybe a lot of people stay there, and then few will subject themselves to that and what that experience is like, and it alchemizes an evolutionary process that takes them beyond, or rather wakes something up, because the ego doesn't, yeah, one could say the ego doesn't really necessarily pass beyond it in a lot of cases, but something else wakes up that has a greater perspective. So psychedelics make it offer the opportunity for beauty in the nihilism. Because of the chemicals it like produces. It's incredible. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Normally, we wouldn't generally experience nihilism with any beauty. It'd be fucking depressing. And in a way, like, that's the natural order of things. And so psychedelics keeps people stuck at green. Psychedelics makes green so tolerable that they're not gonna have to face the internal conflict, the meaninglessness, and they end up just settling in life, in their soul evolution, and chilling out. continuing their capitalist pursuits, their success desires. So psychedelics lead a lot of people to green, and psychedelics keep a lot of people in green. And that's an issue. If you watched this far, let me know what you think. We can all come up with theories about stages of consciousness and human development, and there's kind of never ending insights to have. I'm really curious what any of you think about what I've said, or if you have something to add on, one of your own insights around this, around psychedelics, how they relate to stages, around judgment of green, of New Agers, hippies. Wishing you well in the meantime. Bye.